One wrong step, one fatal miscalculation. That's all it took to turn viral content creation into the 6 most shocking influencer disasters ever recorded. These aren't just tragic accidents from dangerous stunts. They're reminders that in the pursuit of likes and followers, the smallest mistake can cost everything. It was March 15, 2016, when 23-year-old Asher Vance made the fatal decision that would end his life in front of hundreds of online viewers. Working as a freelance creative at a small design studio, Asher had built a modest following of 5,000 Instagram followers through urban exploration content. His outgoing personality and constant need for validation drove him to seek increasingly dangerous locations. For weeks, Asher had been planning his infiltration of the 28-story tower in downtown Los Angeles. The building was undergoing renovations, with loose scaffolding and construction equipment scattered across the upper floors. During his shifts at a nearby coffee shop, Asher often used short breaks to observe the building from across the street, noting security patterns. That evening, Asher arrived with his camera equipment. He had discovered that workers often left a service door propped open during shift changes, allowing him to slip inside undetected. Rosa, a 52-year-old security guard covering for a co-worker, noticed a triggered door sensor but assumed it was construction workers. Asher climbed 28 flights, emerging onto the hazardous rooftop. The renovation had left no safety barriers, with debris scattered everywhere. Wind gusts of 15 to 25 miles per hour whipped across the exposed rooftop, intensified by gaps between unfinished floors. But Asher focused only on capturing the perfect sunset shot with the Los Angeles skyline. He positioned his phone on a small tripod near the building's edge, a ledge barely 10 inches wide, overlooking a 280-foot drop. The ledge was covered in fine construction dust and grit. Asher began live streaming, narrating his setup as he prepared for what he called the sickest rooftop shot in LA. As nearly 200 viewers watched, Asher stepped onto the narrow ledge for the perfect angle. His sneakers, dusty from climbing through the construction site, struggled for grip. While adjusting his position to center the skyline, Asher's shoe slipped on a film of wet dust that had built up along the unfinished ledge. His right foot lost traction, and his weight shifted past the narrow balance point. Desperately reaching for the nearby exposed rebar, the rusty metal was positioned just beyond his grasp. Asher plummeted the full height, his body striking the glass facade twice during the fall, shattering windows on the 15th and 8th floors. The impact with concrete below caused massive blunt force trauma, crushing his skull, ribcage, and pelvis. His phone, still mounted on the small tripod near the ledge, continued recording for several minutes, capturing the aftermath and horrified screams of pedestrians below. Malik, a 31-year-old delivery driver unloading packages, heard the sickening impact and immediately called 911 while bystanders gathered around the scene. Emergency responders arrived within 6 minutes, but Asher was pronounced dead due to multiple traumatic injuries incompatible with life. Before moderators took it down, the live stream had already been viewed by more than 1,000 people. Rosa guided paramedics to the access point. The investigation confirmed that Asher had trespassed onto an active construction site and fallen from an unprotected edge with no safety equipment. Although OSHA typically investigates workplace incidents, officials conducted a limited review to ensure the site's compliance with federal safety standards. The fatality also led to a civil suit alleging inadequate perimeter security, after which contractors implemented stricter access controls and round-the-clock security. The case drew local media attention to the growing risks of urban exploration and social media stunts. Asher's family later founded a small nonprofit promoting online safety, hoping to prevent other young people from risking their lives for digital validation. It was July 8, 2017, when 26-year-old Daphne Stone's quest for ultimate adventure content led to her tragic death in northern Arizona's remote canyons. Working as a marketing coordinator, Daphne had cultivated 3,000 Instagram followers who eagerly awaited her daredevil stunts. Daphne's bubbly personality masked a dangerously competitive streak that drove her to constantly outdo other adventure influencers. She had planned this expedition to the famous desert waterfall for months, promising followers the most insane jump ever captured. That morning, Daphne set out with her boyfriend and 2 friends, loaded with professional camera equipment and a drone. The grueling 8-mile hike through scorching desert led them to the stunning 100-foot waterfall, but something was immediately wrong. The usually deep turquoise pool appeared significantly shallower than expected. A park volunteer, a 47-year-old woman posting warning signs that morning, explained that severe drought had dramatically reduced water levels throughout the canyon system. Local adventure guides had already suspended cliff jumping in the area due to drought-reduced depths, but warning signs were often ignored by visiting thrill seekers. Despite clear warnings about visible rocks beneath the churning surface, Daphne remained fixated on her planned stunt. Her brand was built around fearless adventures, and backing down would disappoint her audience. The group established their filming operation on the opposite rim. Her boyfriend, standing on the rim in clear view, piloted the drone for aerial shots. While the others arranged multiple camera angles, Daphne climbed to a rocky outcrop, 45 feet above the reduced pool, wearing a bright pink bikini for striking contrast against red canyon walls. The drought had exposed jagged formations normally submerged by about 12 feet of water, leaving them roughly 4 feet below the surface. Without hesitation, Daphne began her approach run, executing her signature front flip that had become her trademark move. As cameras captured every detail, Daphne launched into the air with perfect rotation. Her trajectory carried her toward the pool's center as intended, but the reduced depth created a deadly trap. Daphne's head struck a submerged boulder with devastating force. The impact caused an immediate cervical spine fracture, severing her spinal cord and causing instant paralysis. Unable to control her movements or lift her head above the surface, she began drowning in the shallow, churning water. Her boyfriend immediately dove in, pulling Daphne's motionless body to a rock ledge. The group performed desperate CPR while using a satellite messenger to call for emergency evacuation. The remote location created enormous rescue challenges. Extreme summer heat and canyon updrafts delayed helicopter arrival. Pilots reported unstable air and no nearby landing zone, forcing them to stage several miles away. Despite continuous resuscitation efforts for over an hour, Daphne never regained consciousness. When the evacuation helicopter finally arrived, paramedics took over, but the damage was irreversible. Daphne was pronounced dead at the scene, her viral fame dreams ending in the location she had chosen for her greatest adventure. The drone footage captured the entire sequence, providing investigators with complete documentation. Park authorities implemented new safety measures, including prominent drought depth warnings and jumping restrictions during low water conditions. Authorities later used carefully edited clips from the footage for safety education programs, with her family's consent, to show the real consequences of ignoring posted warnings in pursuit of social media content. It was September 22nd, 2015, when 29-year-old Harrison Reed's obsession with capturing the perfect industrial photograph would cost him everything. A meticulous freelance photographer with 2,000 followers, Harrison had built his reputation on dramatic urban imagery that other photographers wouldn't dare attempt. Harrison's perfectionist nature and competitive personality drove him to seek increasingly dangerous locations. This railway bridge outside Portland, Oregon, had been on his target list for months. The rusted steel structure stretched 200 feet across an 80-foot deep ravine, creating the perfect backdrop for his golden hour photography series. Harrison believed his research showed the afternoon freight train had been permanently canceled. What he didn't know was that recent shipping demand increases had quietly restored the freight schedule weeks earlier, a detail that would prove fatal. Harrison arrived in the early afternoon, hauling professional camera equipment down the steep embankment. A rail inspector had conducted his morning safety pass hours earlier, noting intact trespass warning signs that Harrison would ignore. Setting up required precise positioning. Harrison mounted his heavy telephoto lens on a tripod directly on the railway tracks for maximum dramatic impact. To monitor footage and block wind noise, he wore professional noise-canceling headphones that created a dangerous sensory barrier. As Harrison fine-tuned camera settings and reviewed footage, he remained unaware of his surroundings. A nearby trail runner regularly heard train horns near the curved bridge approach. That afternoon, the familiar warning echoed through the valley. The freight train rounded the curve at 35 miles per hour, its engineer immediately spotting the trespasser. Following safety protocol, the engineer blasted the horn continuously, but Harrison heard nothing through his headphones. When Harrison finally noticed the train's headlight, it was only 150 feet away, giving him 3 seconds to react. In that crucial moment, Harrison made a fatal decision, revealing his misplaced priorities. Instead of stepping off the tracks, Harrison reached for his camera first. That brief hesitation used the only seconds he had. When he finally let go of the equipment, the train was already too close for him to avoid. The locomotive's front pilot struck Harrison at full speed, launching his 180-pound body roughly 25 feet through the air. He crashed into the rocky ravine slope, tumbling down the 80-foot embankment while striking trees and boulders. The engineer immediately radioed for emergency assistance, but the remote location made rescue operations extremely challenging. Responders had to navigate steep, unstable slopes with medical equipment. Harrison survived the initial impact but sustained catastrophic internal injuries and severe head trauma. The combination of trauma and exposure quickly pushed him into critical condition. With his phone destroyed and no witnesses nearby, he remained alive for several hours before rescue teams could extract him, succumbing to his injuries moments before they reached him. Investigators recovered Harrison's destroyed camera, but the memory card survived. Final photographs taken moments before the collision showed his careful composition work and complete artistic focus that made him oblivious to approaching death. The official report listed his cause of death as multiple blunt force trauma sustained from the train impact and subsequent fall. The incident prompted railway companies to increase security patrols at photography locations and install additional warning signs targeting urban explorers. Harrison's death became a cautionary tale about the hidden dangers of trespassing on active railway infrastructure. It was December 3, 2018, when 24-year-old Marlo Hayes discovered that cutting-edge technology could become a deadly weapon in the pursuit of viral fame. Working as a fitness instructor, Marlo had been struggling with only 3,800 Instagram followers, watching as other adventure influencers gained millions of views with dangerous content. Marlo's fearless personality masked deep insecurity about her online relevance. She had spent her entire savings on professional drone equipment, convinced that aerial footage would finally separate her content from the crowded fitness influencer market. For weeks, Marlo had researched remote locations in Utah, where she could film death-defying runs along narrow cliff edges. She discovered an isolated canyon near Moab, reachable only by a rugged dirt road and a steep 5-mile hike that kept most visitors away. The location's remoteness guaranteed exclusive footage. The canyon featured towering sandstone walls and narrow rock ledges perfect for visual content. What Marlo hadn't researched was that the canyon's iron-rich rock formations were known to disrupt both GPS signals and compass calibration, conditions that could confuse even advanced drone navigation systems. That afternoon, Marlo arrived with her sister, a cautious office worker who reluctantly agreed to document the stunt. The sister positioned herself at a safe distance while expressing concerns about the dangerous location. Marlo programmed her expensive drone's autonomous tracking system to follow her movements while maintaining optimal filming angles. The sophisticated GPS-guided technology represented months of savings and her hopes for breakthrough success. The stunt involved a fast, controlled run along a 2-foot-wide rock ledge that dropped more than 200 feet to the canyon floor. Marlo had practiced similar runs on safer terrain, building confidence for this challenge. As Marlo began her high-speed run, the drone successfully tracked her initial movements, capturing stunning aerial footage. The technology performed flawlessly for 50 yards, maintaining perfect distance and angle. Midway through the sequence, disaster struck. The canyon's magnetic rock formations interfered with the drone's GPS navigation, causing a critical malfunction that sent the 4-pound aircraft veering wildly off course. The malfunctioning drone, an industrial-grade model weighing nearly 4 pounds, struck Marlowe in the temple at roughly 25 miles per hour. The impact likely caused instant disorientation or a brief loss of consciousness. The unexpected impact caused immediate disorientation and loss of balance, sending her stumbling sideways off the narrow ledge. Marlowe plummeted 200 feet down the canyon wall, her body striking multiple rock outcroppings during the fall. Each impact caused severe trauma, as she bounced between sandstone formations before striking the boulder-strewn canyon floor with fatal force. Her sister immediately attempted calling for help, but discovered no cell coverage in the remote location. The isolation that attracted Marlowe for exclusive filming became a deadly obstacle. The sister hiked 5 miles through difficult terrain to reach the signal. Emergency responders faced enormous challenges reaching the accident site due to the remote location and specialized canyon rescue requirements. Response time stretched over 3 hours, far too late for intervention. By the time rescuers rappelled into the canyon, more than 3 hours had passed, far beyond the window for survival. Marlowe was pronounced dead at the scene from massive trauma. Investigators later found the drone itself near the base of the canyon, its SD card miraculously intact. The drone's recovered memory card provided investigators complete footage of the equipment malfunction and fatal accident, sparking new safety guidelines for drone operation in remote areas. It was August 14, 2016, when 27-year-old Ronan Becker's methodical approach to extreme photography would lead him into a deadly trap. Working as a software developer, Ronan had built a modest YouTube audience that followed his meticulously planned adventure photography expeditions to dangerous locations. Ronan's calculated risk-taking personality set him apart from impulsive thrill-seekers. He approached every dangerous shoot with analytical precision, studying geological surveys and safety protocols for months. This systematic methodology had kept him alive through dozens of extreme sessions, but bred dangerous overconfidence. For months, Ronan had obsessed over capturing the ultimate volcanic photography sequence at Hawaii's active Kilauea crater. He researched geological reports and invested in specialized heat-resistant camera equipment, planning to photograph himself at the crater's edge with flowing lava visible in background. The active crater offered rare opportunity to capture footage directly above flowing lava, with surface temperatures reaching 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That morning, Ronan arrived equipped with heat-resistant protective gear and professional camera equipment. He had studied park safety guidelines and believed his technical preparation would protect him from obvious dangers. However, his research focused on heat hazards while overlooking invisible toxic gas emissions. A park ranger, a seasoned geologist, noticed Ronan's setup and warned about dangerous sulfur dioxide concentrations that could reach lethal levels without warning. Despite professional warnings, Ronan remained confident that his protective equipment would keep him safe. Ronan began filming by setting up camera equipment 15 feet from the crater's edge, narrating volcanic geology to his live audience of 150 viewers. His educational approach combined scientific knowledge with extreme visuals. As the session progressed, Ronan's desire for dramatic shots led him progressively closer to the active crater. He wore his heat-resistant suit and monitored surface temperatures, believing he had accounted for major risks while ignoring invisible toxic gas threats. Moving within 8 feet of the crater's edge for his signature selfie pose, Ronan unknowingly stepped into a dense pocket of carbon dioxide that had pooled near the crater floor. The carbon dioxide pocket had displaced nearly all breathable oxygen, creating a sudden suffocation hazard that caused near-instant collapse. The colorless, odorless gas offered no warning. Ronan suddenly experienced severe breathing difficulty and disorientation as toxic fumes overwhelmed his respiratory system. His heat-resistant gear provided no protection against the chemical assault. Within seconds, he collapsed face-first toward the crater. Ronan's unconscious body slid down the unstable volcanic rock slope toward the 2,000-degree lava flow. Extreme heat caused severe burns before he reached the molten lava, with his camera continuing to record until destroyed by the temperatures. His unconscious body ignited as it reached the lava's surface. The molten rock rapidly charred and destroyed most soft tissue, leaving only unrecognizable remains that could not be recovered. The livestream captured Ronan's collapse and slide before the camera succumbed to heat damage, traumatizing viewers. Park rangers discovered Ronan's abandoned equipment and initiated emergency protocols, but extreme temperatures prevented any safe recovery, leaving his remains on the cooling lava crust where they were later buried by new flows. The incident led to stricter access controls at volcanic sites and mandatory gas monitoring equipment, with Ronan's death becoming a case study, highlighting the hidden dangers of toxic gas exposure. It was April 5, 2021, when 25-year-old Hazel Lane's desperate pursuit of wellness influencer fame led her into a frozen death trap. Working as a fitness trainer, Hazel had been struggling with only 4,500 TikTok followers, watching as other wellness influencers gained massive audiences with extreme content. Hazel's competitive personality and relentless drive for recognition pushed her toward increasingly dangerous wellness trends. She became fascinated by Scandinavian ice swimming practices and convinced herself that filming an ice-breaking swim in the American wilderness would be her viral breakthrough. For weeks, she researched remote lakes in northern Minnesota for her challenge. Eventually, she found an isolated lake surrounded by dense pines, where shaded coves still held thick patches of ice despite the spring thaw. What she failed to understand was how the warming temperatures had weakened the surface from below. Days of mild weather and melting snow had created air pockets, slush layers, and thin crusts that looked solid, but were treacherously unstable. That afternoon, Hazel arrived alone with her recording equipment and minimal cold weather protection. She brought no flotation device, safety rope, or thermal gear. Every decision was guided by how the footage would look, not how safe it would be. A cross-country skier using a nearby trail noticed Hazel's parked car at the remote access point, but assumed it belonged to another outdoor enthusiast. He continued his route, unaware that she was preparing for a dangerous stunt. Hazel set up her camera about 30 feet from shore, positioning herself over one of the deepest parts of the lake. Using a small camping axe, she began striking the surface to create an opening. Each blow sent deep vibrations through the thinning ice. Cracks spread in a spiderweb pattern beneath her boots, and the surface emitted long, hollow groans. She pressed on, ignoring the warning signs. After several minutes of chopping, the accumulated stress reached its limit. The ice suddenly gave way in a jagged circle roughly 6 feet across, plunging Hazel into 32-degree water. The shock was immediate and violent. The freezing water triggered an involuntary gasp reflex, drawing icy water into her lungs before she could react. Her muscles seized as her body attempted to conserve heat, robbing her of coordination and strength. The heavy winter clothing that had shielded her from the cold above the surface now dragged her downward. Broken ice slabs closed over the opening, disorienting her as she tried to surface. Within minutes, her movement slowed as hypothermia took hold. Her core temperature fell rapidly, clouding her awareness and weakening her pulse. By the time she lost consciousness, her body was already too cold to recover. Later that afternoon, the skier returned and noticed Hazel's abandoned tripod and backpack beside the fractured ice. Alarmed, he called emergency services. Rescue teams arrived 45 minutes later and spent another half hour cutting through unstable ice to recover her body. Hazel Lane was pronounced dead at the scene. The official cause was drowning due to cold water immersion, complicated by severe hypothermia. Her pursuit of social media recognition had ended beneath the fragile spring ice of a remote Minnesota lake. By the time rescuers completed their work, the surface had already begun to refreeze, concealing the opening where she had fallen. Her tripod and phone were recovered nearby, partially buried in slush. 2 days later, investigators examined the phone and found a final recording that ended abruptly with the sound of cracking ice and rushing water. Local authorities ruled the incident an accidental drowning and later used the recovered footage in a public safety campaign warning against winter swimming stunts filmed for online content. Thanks for watching. Want to see more? Click on your screen now.